Welcome all people to Broken Windows. I'm your co-host Shadrack Manano,
Joel Oteam is my name.
and today we have
Sassi Marvin.
Sassi Marvin here to talk to us, to share thing about speech,
Yes.
free speech today.
No.
Free speech. For what do you understand by free speech? Is it just the ability to just say what you want?
Ideally,
That is
in
it.
simple terms, there is a legal definition, and then there is really the common man's understanding of free speech.
But the common man's understanding is really what free speech is. Because if the common man doesn't have free speech, then
I think the common man may have a misconception about what exactly constitutes free speech. They tend to think anything and everything you say goes.
yes.
Which would not necessarily be the case. Yeah,
because the laws are against protecting.
So, for example, I cannot go to Facebook and post Shadrack and then I post a bang and I say today you will be dead and then they arrest me. I say, but I have freedom of speech.
Exactly.
But
Yeah,
then,
so-
isn't that freedom of speech though?
No, but
There is protected speech,
Mm.
and then there is that which is not protected. So if you are
I think that has been the greatest debate. What is freedom of speech? Because how far can someone go before we say, no, what you're saying is problematic.
It's problematic.
And I think before there's what they call, I think, the harm principle. If you're saying something that is going to bring harm, like if you say maybe something about a certain tribe, like hate speech, for example, a certain tribe or a certain group of people will be like, this is wrong. But now it is different because everyone has a group. Everyone has a group, and it is it's always almost a competition of like my group has suffered or whatever, or my ideas are genuine. So the idea of free speech is like lost there. We're trying to make everyone happy, but then we don't have like real standards.
yeah,
And
but for me, who is engaged in these political circles, I would pass some of the blame onto the government. Government, I think, has not done enough to make people understand what constitutes free speech. If Stella Nyanzi posts 2 days, they will get her, then arrest her, and then take her to prison. When you examine what you say, it doesn't necessarily violate free speech, but the regime will want to create an impression
that it does.
So the government should have done a lot in helping people understand what would be criminal to say and what would not be criminal. Is making everything blunt.
And do you think is it like now the fact that Stella Nyanzi is being arrested and all, we are seeing anyone who talks probably against anyone, not only in Uganda, out of Africa, when someone
in Turkey,
talks,
in Senegal, yes.
Now when the fear created by the fact that if you say something they will arrest you. Even us here, we know if we have brought Sassi, they might just carry our cameras tomorrow.
The drones are waiting.
So I'm trying to find out, is that the fear? Is it the reason why our rights can easily be infringed? Because now no one really wants to know what speech is. If someone just said, that man said something against a big man, like,
and I think the worst thing about all this is also that we're dealing with like the idea of free speech in a time that is very complicated. You have other groups that have interests, social media giants and what. Now, like Facebook, what do you mean by community standards? Like you've talked about Stella Nyanzi. It has reminded me of her whole debacle. She's going against a certain politician, which I will not mention. But and Facebook has said that these are community guidelines, standards, and obviously, I believe because people have reported their speech.
Yes.
Some people found it on Facebook, which is also within their right.
Yeah.
But now Facebook is what has taken down some of her content.
Yeah,
so it raises the question on what is
what's
community
going
standard.
on specifically with Stella. I think it has exposed some loopholes in how Facebook conducts its
Yes,
business.
exactly.
Because when you look at some of the posts that were reported and Facebook pulled down, as a lawyer and as a person with some considerable common sense, they would not really pass the test of violating free speech. But I think I don't know what I don't think Facebook in most cases uses real people to check whatever is reported. So when like 1,000 people report a post,
they automatically have to take it down.
Oh, okay.
But if they had an individual human being looking at whatever is reported, would probably do
and
something
actually
with the report.
putting up the standards personal, like someone reads and is like, hey, actually this is hate speech and all, because anything can be hate speech. Anything you say against me and I feel it hurts me, it's offensive, and I report you, it can be considered.
It can be like, it can be as simple as me going to a girl and being like, you're ugly. That is also free speech in the
It's also
essence.
free speech, yes.
Yeah.
But are we going to protect people's right to just go around abusing people and saying you and what and what?
Yeah, but then us as people with common sense and also who have learned, how far do you think we can go to actually differentiate insults from constructive talk? Like, I am going to have a talk with you. I've read some of your posts with different people, and not that not that probably I'm attached to you in any way, but you can notice that this is dialogue between two people. But then the comments down there is people thinking that these people don't like each other. Yeah, you know,
they're choosing sides.
They are choosing sides. You know what? For us, we are for Sassi, and because of this and this. But then, how far? Even you, who knows that probably me and this person are just having an intellectual discourse. I disagree with him because of this, but it should not drag an entire platform to come and probably post his nudes.
Yeah, but the challenge you have, especially in the context of Uganda and in the context of the leadership troubles that we are having, is right now conversations which would be in good faith are no longer entertained by the people. For example, when Stella Nyanzi starts attacking Bobby Wine, you are going to see they won't care what's the content of her post, how true it is, or
but
how
also
verified it is.
maybe also like NUP also has to do some bit of like polishing, because if it also worked on being able to have an official communication channel,
Which it does.
it does, but it's not, you know, there's a risk that when you have this channel, don't when you have this channel, that people like the mob, once you let the mob sort of like characterize the discussion, all the points are spread out, because for you trying to engage on like topic point after point, and then these people have just come with all this emotion, which is also they're entitled to.
It shows you that people have run out of patience.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
People
also,
have run out of patience.
I want us to look at
Let
it.
me tell you, we've had so many civil debates. Almost every day you will see a talk show, maybe on TV, maybe on radio.
We're
and
trying to
so
have a civil
people will
debate.
talk, go for conferences, this and that. But all of them, they are not yielding much. And when you look at the circumstances in which Ugandans find themselves, they literally have nowhere to pour their bile from. They will not go and hold a successful demonstration on the streets, even if they are right to police or not the permission.
Because there's also that you have to protest in
they
free
see
speech.
social media as the only space they have.
Yeah.
And so they literally don't entertain any nonsense whatsoever, because they've tolerated enough. They have gone through a lot.
Wouldn't it be fair to say that they have now hijacked that platform?
Not necessarily.
Because now if you're not allowing anyone else to have a divergent opinion, then you're basically
No, but
hijacked
in
the
any case,
platform.
Uganda has a population of over 45 million people, and on Facebook alone, I don't think there are more than 4 million Ugandans on Facebook.
No, it's 3
Yeah,
point
more.
something.
They are
3
much-
point something.
They are 4 million, yes.
They are much fewer than that. I don't think all those 3 million Ugandans on Facebook are supporters of NUP.
Yes.
So I don't think it would be fair to say that those of NUP
have hijacked.
have hijacked it.
But
What may be true though is that NUP generally, and Bobby in particular, has awoken people, which unlike in
Has
the past.
awoken debate
Yeah, so
on
even
that
people
platform.
who were previously not interested in politics will find them
And now, but that is also a good thing. For me, I like that, because if the politics is in your face, you have to confront
Yeah.
it. You have to confront
it
that.
has to be put everywhere.
But you should also look at it in this line that probably African governments and any form of government would want to actually show that opposition has hijacked something and are trying to misuse it and all. So I think maybe they're doing a good job to actually say that NUP people have hijacked because you've believed it.
Yes.
Because that is the purpose. That is how you're brainwashed to actually see, to decipher certain information. When you just see any red post and everything, you're like, these are just people gallivanting or not on social media. But then if we're to consider even free speech, even just in our normal conversations, and I'm talking to you, we're having an argument where we're going to disagree and everything. When we are all different, like we hold different political views, if we are two. And then after that, on Facebook, by the way, after that, we leave. And then people see us working together.
Yeah.
people
Ah,
be like,
the
those people are playing with us. The picture was taken of Sassi and Mwenda.
That is how low we have sunk. That
Yes.
is how low we have sunk, and that's why I was saying that the government has not done enough, if it has done anything at all. It has not done enough
But-
to help people appreciate what.
But you
what,
see,
what
it
this
cannot
is.
be in the government's interest to really like have more information. It has never been in any government's interest. Even the most democratic government, it cannot be in your, because like even you, as-
Yeah, but the question,
when your girlfriend knows all the
question
bad
then
things you've
becomes
done.
in whose interest should
Yes.
it be? If the
It
government
should be in
is
the
not
interest
going
of
to
the
take
people.
charge of that, then
Exactly.
who is
But
going
for me,
to-
what I believe is that people,
Yeah.
we should have a universal standard. It should not be Facebook to dictate. It should not be a government to dictate without like this proper
Not necessarily
like
dictate,
constitutional.
but guide.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yes.
Guide.
Like-
That's what leaders are elected for.
Yes,
to be guided.
but it should be people to understand that, because people, we also don't have like media literacy classes or like these classes on social media, so that people understand that there's a responsibility that comes with using a platform.
Yeah.
Yes, you've been given the right to say whatever you want to say, but there's a responsibility that you will have to not say certain things to offend people, or that you will have to carry the consequence of what you say.
Even
Because if for you, like you said, you post a bang and you want Shadrack, today you're dead, you took that babe.
Yeah,
Like,
you cannot turn around and
Yeah,
say I was exercising.
I was exercising my right to
Yeah.
free speech.
But
Yes.
this thing even goes into entertainment, football and all. You know, now, because I remember there's a time they attacked a certain referee, and then now social media, I mean, the FA wanted to bring out new rules where they want people to actually be recognized. Like if you're Sassi Marvin, you're registering on Facebook and all, your ID number, what?
It was players, it was this man of Crystal Palace, Zaha. He wants that registration. Like the way you get a national ID or a permit.
so that if you say something, they can hunt you down.
Because anyway, for him it was in the context of racism. People are always, you post something, me with my family,
They're like,
bananas.
"Man, you-
monkeys
you
get
monkeys,
bananas,
go
what?
away,
It's
leave,"
like
you know?
it's a bad environment for you if you're and it's also in like other when you talked about musicians also, there was a group in the US called the Two Live crew. They were rappers, but it was the most nasty and the most like they had the most nasty lyrics, and they had women twerking and all this. So the FBI took them to court.
Wow.
The FBI took them to court, and it was one of the first like landmark cases of free speech in the world, because the court protected their right. They said these people are entitled to say these things. Because now if you're going to arrest me every time I say, yesterday I was drinking beer in a bar at 9 p.m. and you arrest me just because I've said that, then like I cannot say anything. I can't even say anything that exactly without it being criminalized.
Where are you drinking from when bars are closed?
Exactly. And even us as entertainers won't be able to say certain things, because what if I say I'm single and I have a wife? And she takes me to court just because I said I was single on TV, and now all these words are used. There's a certain privilege that they should have.
I wanted to know from Sassi, would you consider the fact that government shutting down Facebook was what we call checks and balances?
No.
No, I don't think that would qualify to be referred to or called a check. It wasn't. If at all they want to put it in the category of checks and balances, then we can still argue that it was not legitimate, because the intention of shutting down Facebook wasn't necessarily to deter crime. Like I saw some of the spokespeople for the regime, we are saying the intention was clear. The intention was to make it extra hard for common people, voters, to communicate. If you see something going on at your polling station, but you don't have Facebook, you will find that even the interest in capturing what's going on, you lose it. There are people, unless they have social media, they have data and it's working. If they don't, you find even the person who have recorded a video not.
I've told him about that video of that gentleman. I think it was NBS.
Which one?
There was a woman who had drowned, and then they interviewed the gentleman. He said, "But I had no one to give my phone. I would have jumped in to help her, but I had no one to give my phone."
He didn't get it.
And I'm sure the guy had someone to give the phone to me. That have said he didn't have a charger. He could have come up with an excuse. But that is it. People, we live in that age where people are always about you want to highlight whatever is happening, and the internet helps us like that. And it is funny that now the internet has been recognized as a human right, because it's giving you access to information, to even just organizing, and it's a means of like getting like.
But the challenge we have is that we have leaders who do not necessarily appreciate or understand that.
Yes.
That's why I keep saying we have people who lead us, but they have no clue about what's going on. I saw Museveni commenting about the internet shutdown. Forget the previous comments before voting, but after voting he said, "Yeah, we turned off Facebook. we switched to WhatsApp back on, but Facebook will never come back on." Development, I'm just paraphrasing. So he was like, whatever has been going on as part of the development process for the country will not stop just because Facebook is off. But if you really analyze what he's saying in the context of Facebook, he just does not understand. He does not understand that Facebook is a marketplace.
Yes.
He does not understand that Facebook is an office for some people, like his Ashback Cattles and the likes. When there is no Facebook, they are completely irrelevant. I saw video of Ashback. after they disabled his account on Facebook, he said among so many other things, was like, guys, when I was starting this, TikTok was not my thing. Twitter was not my thing. What he was saying is that much as I have alternatives like TikTok,
like this was
Twitter,
my passion.
Facebook was it. This one's TikTok, what to everything. So he was saying, I have from today onwards quit social media for good because it does not have that one single thing called Facebook. So, but of course Museveni doesn't understand all that because his children and his grandchildren are there on Instagram saying they are completely oblivious to what's going on. So I think the grandkids told him, so long as you leave Instagram, we are good to go. So when a leader of a country of over 30 million young men and women says that even when a social media platform as important as Facebook will not deter development in the country even if it's shut down, that's a person who is clearly out of touch with reality because he simply has no clue about
what do you think it says about the ability of free speech?
Yeah, that's why I was saying that the leadership has done very little, if anything at all, to help people appreciate this concept. Every small thing. You say one small thing, before you know which drones will be coming, picking you, torturing you, and then they take you to court. Now you look at the horizontals. They're on a radio station, they come, they pick them.
And it's important that we protect the people's right to disagree.
For example, you see this COVID thing. If the government were really enforcing the regulations in good faith, it could have come up with things like fines. We find you walking past, we will find you riding a motorcycle past 6 p.m. We shall fine you. We find you maybe, I don't know, holding a campaign of more than 70 people. We shall fine you. Now you imagine a scenario where every campaigner they hold of more than 70, you have a 5 million fine on you. Eventually that would deter you, but instead what they'll do, I'll come, I'll shoot you, cut off your leg, shoot tear gas at you, shatter your leg, and then go away, then come to court and say he was violating COVID-19. But any reasonable person can see that that was an outrageous use of force or something as simple as violating a guideline. So, but again, it goes back to what I was saying, that most of the actions that the regime is taking are not necessarily in good faith. They are undertaken to achieve certain ulterior motives that they will never let the public know about. So
when we bring it back to free speech, it's just because. But you also do you feel like it's also what fair? Because like we have said, the people regulating free speech, there is no like known mechanism. There is no known like community standard. Let's say we have the constitution. And the constitution regulates free speech as it does. Then we have the government, and the government also has to regulate free speech,
and also those
in the public interest, like we have agreed. And then we also have the what?
Public Management Acts and probably
Misuse Acts. And of course there are a couple of international legal instruments.
But don't you worry about the tech giants? My worry because if whatever Facebook has done, on the PR perspective, they've handled it poorly. With the Stella Nyanzi issue, because now you're forcing, it's almost like they not interference. Their work doing their own enforcing their own rules has now started pitting people against each other. Now people believe that maybe NUP has some propaganda and has somehow made this happen, which is. I feel like it is a ridiculous idea because that would be the same as saying, I don't know, like...
You know what...
Okay, for example, Trump. Don't you feel like that was an overstep of the power of Twitter or Facebook.
I don't think so. You look at the attack on the Capitol Hill.
On the Capitol Hill
Yeah.
and his
So I
comments.
think
I feel like he should be held responsible for his actions. But then saying you cannot speak because of this and this happened, because of people who listen to you. Like I cannot, if I say I'm Jesus and people worship me, okay, yes, I do not, this is not compare it as agitated issue, but also like,
I think we can agree that any speech that a reasonable person would interpret to be inciting crime cannot be protected.
that is okay, that is okay.
Yeah.
Now the question is what would amount to inciting crime? And I think there are several judgments and legal instruments that can really define that. When you look at the things that Trump was saying, especially a few hours before that attack on the Capitol Hill,
it was
and then the
problematic.
statement he released during the attack on the Capitol Hill,
How-
it just made things worse.
It may make things worse. But how then do we as people or as a country or as a government regulate the influence of Facebook? All this and this. Because today, maybe we are NUP and it's working in our favor that maybe a dissenter is being, let's say, cut off. The mic is being cut off. But tomorrow, it will be other things and we'll have to worry about that. But because we don't address some of these issues at their play, in the beginning, we'll have issues. Because now, it is a difficult thing because once you sign on Facebook, you're signing on to their rules.
But me, everyone don't want to look at it in line with the tech giants. Don't you think that soon, let's imagine most of these African governments, because it's not only in Uganda where it has happened. I think even Tanzania during the election, they blocked.
They decided that COVID wasn't,
everything. No, they blocked. Even texting was blocked and everything. My argument first was because I was like, but looking at the president of Tanzania has that social and communist feel. I think he's trying to the electoral commission is trying to make it economically fair for every candidate. Because if there's a candidate who has more money and can send a bigger to reach, it will be. So what I'm asking is, don't you think that this, because nowadays it happens and even us it happened the other side. And we create
Exactly.
and we're going to live with this every election time. Let me download VPN because I know what is going to happen.
Exactly.
Within this will be part of us. Well, you know what?
I was
elections.
speaking to a Sudanese friend of mine, and he told me in Sudan before, I think Bashir's last election, they had internet shut down for over a month, and I said,
And then they learn to live without it. But like I will keep saying, it's very hard when we are talking about things like this topic. For me, as a politically conscious person, it's very hard to not bring in the element of government. But also, I remain hopeful that when leadership changes, some of the things will change. Museveni set a very bad precedent in, was it 2016? I think, unless I'm mistaken, but that was the very first time internet was switched off
yes.
During election time. And when you look at the countries that switch off internet during election period, you are not going to see South Africa there, you are not going to see the Ghana's there. You're going to see these other countries with a suspect democratic credentials like Tanzania, then you will see Uganda, and a couple of those other countries which have their own category on the African continent. Those are the ones.
But how do we protect free speech now? How do we make sure? Because for me, I'm sure you as a person, you've heard maybe what Dr. Stella Nyanzi was saying, and you can pick out her argument and respond to it and be like, no, you've lied, this and this and this. But this is what is right.
Yeah, that's what we did for Ashback Kato.
Yes, you can do that. You can do that. So how do you protect the right to do that? Because here we are in let's say this other side where maybe we outnumber the other person who's speaking. How do we make sure that the one person, before we even go into whatever they are saying, how do we make sure that what they are saying is protected? That is a question I feel like also us and maybe people who are politically conscious and everyone should be exploring, because even forget about even things like government and things like Me Too, free speech and all that. You can't say certain things without feminists running on you. You get, even if the observation or if
Big Famika's son.
Yeah, but you know, what you say or what you mean when you say something does not necessarily mandate those to whom you are saying it or who hear it to interpret it or understand it the same way you intended it to.
Yes.
So if you make a statement in good faith with good intentions, you cannot fault a woman or a feminist for that matter for misinterpreting it and saying you are being misogynistic or something like that. So it really depends on who your audience is. There are things you can say to a particular audience.
So the question should be: should FIFA Maker, should an artist like FIFA Maker not be allowed to make a song like that?
I think that would be to stretch the argument. Again, for me, the question goes back to was what he did or was what he sang or what he said in good faith. What was the intention with which he did it? This was a creative. This was an entertainer. He just got lyrics. He wanted to make sure they rhyme. And I want to believe that when he was making the song, for him, he just made something that would sound nice to the ears, and it did sound nice to most of us.
It did.
Yeah, but then some interesting feminist comes up and says, wait a minute, that must be misogynistic. Also, when there's so many other things that she said. Did she go ahead to file the case in court? I think she did, and then someone did that. So it's debatable. It's debatable. That's why I said that you are entitled to say what you say, but you cannot force your audience to interpret it the way you want it to be interpreted. Yeah, but also in Africa, specifically in Uganda, we have, besides the concept of free speech, we now know that you are only entitled to say what you want, but the regime or whoever hears it is also entitled to respond in a particular manner. So you have your freedom of speech, but you will not necessarily be guaranteed freedom after the speech.
Yeah, but even as we go further, I want to just concentrate on the aspect of one, we want to create life probably after these current African governments, right? But then if the population get used to certain things, you know, like what most of these pseudo-revolutionaries or the so-called revolutionaries did to us was made us believe that we gave you something you will never get from anyone else. You get? We have given you people all that peace, you have. You know, the push on that. So later on, time will come when also probably new governments are like, we came and we actually decided to make, we brought back Facebook to its what? It is full.
We brought back Facebook.
Countries like, I think China has an alternative for Facebook.
Yes,
it's not run there, but they have their, and they're actually living with that. That is something they have learned to live with. No one has ever come on like, we also want to see what goes on.
And China is a very dangerous place because when you say something, they just cut you off.
Yeah.
When you say something, I remember a few, and also in the idea of free speech. Something I struggle with is like, what qualifies me to comment on a subject? Because that also seems to be a problem.
But with free speech, you do not need necessarily to be qualified.
No, I understand that should be the concept. But now people will be like, but that person is not that person. Like I can't have a conversation on feminism because I am a man. You get? People will be like, you don't know our struggles. But also we have actors.
Let me make it look political. Sassi, if you posted something or you wanted to post something, then you gave me to post it. The same words, but probably it's against the government. Then I post it. Do you know that they might not come for me, contrary to if you posted it? So I'm trying.
So that's the credibility thing.
For that to be hate speech because it is Oteam. You get who knows me apart from our 530 viewers. But subscribe, you guys.
but yeah, so like that issue of like, because now, for example, what happened to LeBron? He had been commenting on what was happening in Hong Kong. And then in China removed all those NBA posters. They stopped streaming. They kept quiet because those guys also believe in the money, in the currency. So now we're also going to get to that point where you can't say anything if you've not been somewhere. You know that those people who have traveled outside countries, you can be having a conversation with someone and be like, but in Kenya they do this, and they're like, but I've been to Kenya and they don't do that. And you're like, but so because you've been there once, you authority on anyway, this is how people have not
but as we
climb the planes.
Tell us, what do you think? One, what are the things that should be put for actually this whole concept of free speech to be understood by people? And you know, with the youth, and also we as the youth, we're the biggest population here in this country, and the fear is that what is put on this social media platform can easily be translated out. Like if people just stand and they're like, tomorrow let's do this, and And that is the scare of everyone.
Well, that is
what is something that should be done to make these people believe that all we want is for them to hear us out?
First of all, going back to free speech, I think the laws that we have in place, the constitution and all other relevant laws, I think to a certain extent, we had some problematic provisions in the laws, especially the Penal Code Act. The courts also, especially in the case of
Onyango
and Mwenda versus Attorney General, the courts also helped us. What should I call it? Widen the limits of speech. Yeah, sedition and all that. So I think we have fairly good laws. The question is, the issue would be about how they are implemented and the intentions of the implementation.
True.
If you can put some good intentions, some good faith there in, I think we'll be good to go. But for me as a person, I feel that conversations like this one, in the meantime, may not take us very far, because we are talking to people who are simply not hearing. They don't. It's not that they are not hearing. They don't want to hear.
But they're going to subscribe.
Okay. So
they're going to subscribe now.
Yeah. So for as long as we, it's like growing up at home and your parents are night dancers, or your parents are thieves, whatever. You're likely to grow up with such characters.
Yes.
You get. So the question of leadership, we have. This is a country of very young people. So they are likely to do in future what they are seeing now.
Exactly.
That's why some
that
people
is
have
what
got to
scares
accept
me.
that when you turn off Facebook during elections, you actually win if you are the incumbent. You get, you'll be able to do and get away with so many things. So don't be surprised in 15 or 20 years when another version of Museveni comes and does the same thing, because the president will set and he saw that it works. Let me tell you, people are now convinced that you can actually rig an election and get away with it.
Exactly.
Somewhere in Mutundu we have that guy, Jacob Mutuze. He was over like 4th, 5th, but he was announced winner and he got away with it. You get, you go to court, you'll see what the court will say. I think we have another issues everywhere across the country. So people are being made to believe
they're learning this
that
thing.
crime
And for me, I think that scares me also is that we have talked about government, we have talked about the constitution, we have talked about tech giants, and like institutions like maybe NUPO, for example, what the Catholic Church was telling some of its people to say. Don't say those things. That is also something I also want to point out. Like free speech has got to that point where I can't even share something on my WhatsApp. Your boss will be like, you're using internet our office internet to talk about these things. You want to what like you get it? And that is where free speech is actually important, because, for example, in the US, this is not connected to free speech. In the US recently, there was some bit of storm brewing because there are women who are adult entertainers and they're on a platform called OnlyFans. And so these women have day jobs, and they do certain other things on this platform. They're doing sexual things, yes, but also the question then became of like how far, like now that I'm in my free time, I'm off the book. How far can should I be answerable to them? It's like football players, like I said. Football players are not allowed to make certain comments. Like you saw, I remember during the World Cup, I think Scandinavian,
Shaqiri and
they're making all these signs that people were like,
no,
this is not okay. And for me, that is my scare. That now, for me, as someone on broken windows, someone who's going to stand behind there and say, Shadrack, you cannot say this and this and this. It's not even really the government, it's not even really about Facebook, but people who have, because people are signing funny contracts now. You can't comment on this, you can't comment on that.
Yeah, but the difference between us here and people in such jurisdictions is that their institutions, especially the judiciary, are always on the front line protecting free speech. So while such a woman who does a blue collar job during the day and in the night she has turned into a stripper,
into a yellow collar job,
she will be terminated on job. She will go to court and she will be sure of a reinstatement, so long as court finds that whatever she did does not necessarily violate the law. But here, when you are in Uganda, things may change. That's why your boss will ask you, why are you posting a photo of Bobby Wine on your WhatsApp status?
Yes.
You know why? Because he knows that anytime now, this guy may be picked, or my workplace may be marked, and then the regime comes against me. But so that's why you see journalists are not allowed to, or they are not encouraged to openly express to make political comments and stuff.
For example,
During elections, the regime required journalists to
get
register and get accreditation afresh. And there were journalists like, was it Luhowa? Then there was this other Sabit, Joseph, and then a couple of other guys. They tried to get accreditation.
And
They did not get it. And it was so obvious because when you would go to their Twitter threads and see what they used to say, most of it would be condensed as something that was critical
of the government.
and in a good way. Yeah, so in Uganda,
they just
we cannot compare what happens here with
They
what
just
happens
submit
in
from
the
where?
US.
when he had gone to State House, he had gone to interview.
Yeah,
and
Museveni told him
said,
he should
"Get
never
out, I
interview
don't
him
want that
again,"
man to
and
interview me. And he was just
So
away.
you can see.
But as we wind up, I know we really have so much depth on this. I need probably your last comments on probably what we should not really expect, but what are the things you think can really change society to actually believe in systems in Uganda? Because now that you people withdrew even from court, now do you know what it has caused? Because I recently posted on my Facebook that there's a time I was talking to Andrew Karamaji when he came to UC, and I asked him, how come you didn't go to LDs? And he's like, to practice in which courts? Like, why would I waste time to go? And he had excelled. He was the second best that year, but he didn't go to LDs. And he predicted that we can't trust these courts, and now you people have come and also put people also not to trust and given us the public
I think
court.
maybe it's not that we've made people to not trust.
I think you've just
I
exposed.
think we have been bold enough to say it the way majority of Ugandans feel it.
That is true.
You get? Because, for example, the case was withdrawn. The court gave a very short judgment saying, yeah, you've been allowed to withdraw the case, but as to whether the withdrawal of the petition will pay costs or not, it will be in a detailed ruling, which will come at a later date. Now, the conversation is what happens. Are they not going to strike the petitioner with costs? But again, it will not be the first time that someone goes to court with a legitimate concern, raises it before the courtroom, and at the end of the day, things have turned against him and is being made to pay. The same person whom he has a legitimate grievance against.
But even to play advocate of the Supreme Court, they also have to protect the institution, because also they don't want people to just come and drop a petition and then.
But the institution exists for who? That is the question. The institution exists for the people, and if it is demonstrably acting in ways that are not for people, then you really cannot bring up that argument. I've seen the Ugandan Society. I've also seen the Chief Justice putting so much emphasis on how lawyers are supposed to respect decorum and how lawyers are supposed to respect these institutions. But what are the institutions doing? You get? That is the question. No one is focusing on what has gone wrong in the Supreme Court. But
I think all we have is a PR machine, because now, for example, ULS, no, it was Law Council. Law Council revokes the late Bob Kasanjo's PC. ULS is making statements.
And then when he dies,
exactly.
And refers him as our member. This is being explained years ago. But anyway, you asked me. You asked me what I have to say finally.
Yeah.
I think it will be. I want it to be a general comment on the direction of our country. We have so many things that have gone wrong, and if I can relate it to what Karamaji said, that I go to dissect practice in his course. We have so much going wrong in our country that no matter what English we used to talk about it, no matter how many talk shows we have or attend, is not going to be sorted unless people do more than just talking, or unless those who see do more than just sing and keeping quiet. I think everyone must get involved. I don't want to use the word struggle, but there is no way I can avoid it. I think everyone must get involved in the affairs of this country, because it
doesn't matter which side you are.
And it's not going to change. You are not going to have a meaningful conversation about free speech, and it results in the government taking a leaf from what you're saying and then putting certain things in order. It's not going to happen for as long as we still have the same regime. Because when it takes off Facebook, it is meant to benefit it in one way or another. When it brings the social media tax and makes Ugandans pay it, yet the same regime could have reached out to Zuckerberg and they cut a deal where Facebook
exactly
gives some sort of tax to the regime. So it becomes obvious that the tax is not introduced for the good of the people. So I think that things are just going to get worse and we'll have a change in leadership from the top, because the fish rots from the head. If you have a president who's doing this, who is okay with people murdering Stella Nyanzi, and then they get away with it and say, okay, we are going to arrest him and ask him some questions, but then by mistake we shot him dead, but we shall see about that. And up to now, the people who shot Stella Nyanzi they are still walking. So what is another thing? Yeah, what is another
I think we have a short attention span also as a country, but that is on us. So cannot blame us.
No, we don't have a short attention span. The truth is that there has been so much injustice that happens. As you're still trying to wrap your mind about this, another thing happened. Maybe I can give you a short example of what happened during the campaigns. 27th December, they shot Ashraf Kasiri, who was covering from Ghetto TV. They shot him in the head. He was almost dead, so rushed him to hospital, Ruaga Hospital. As we are rushing Ashraf to hospital, a military truck is knocking Francis Center Sakaribara, crashing his car. We are rushing him to hospital. We are at hospital, idiots are shooting tear gas and bullets into the hospital. 27th. 28th, prayers, vigil. 30th, people are going to Kalanga, they are still mourning, they are still crying, they are still praying that Ashraf Kasiri gets, so they are all arrested. You get? So we have over 30 youth in Kitaria prison. They have to bear with the death of their comrade just 2 days, and on the third day they are arrested, they are put in Kitaria, no one can see them, no one can talk to them, some of them are tortured, and all those things. So it's not that people have a very short attention span, but what is true maybe is that there's so much injustice going on that as you're still trying to figure out this,
we've been numbed in a way.
Yeah, we've been numbed in the way, and that's why you're seeing all that vibe on social media. That's why you're seeing a lot of intolerance, because people have seen so much injustice that they simply do not want to see an idiot, and no offense, they don't want to see an idiot like Rom Shanana or an idiot like Andrew Mwenda coming out to rationalize and normalize, what's going on with good English, and then nice examples from UK, and UK.
I hope Andrew Mwenda can come here.
So people cannot feel they cannot tolerate that nonsense anymore. They don't even want to entertain a conversation about it, because some facts are obvious. Why would I go for the iPod summit to talk about kidnapping of people, yet some honorable person knows that we should not even be talking about it, it should not be happening.
It should not be happening in a country like ours.
Yeah, so unless young men and women get involved and take charge and know that they have their destiny in their own hands, things are only going to continue getting worse.
All right, everyone.
That is for us from Broken Windows. I think everyone, in a way, you have to use your platform. It doesn't matter what side you are. You have to use your platform to engage and contribute to society, contribute constructively.
Everything we believe in.
Yes, and it doesn't matter, because when, like you said, when we have issues with injustices or service delivery, it affects all of us. It doesn't really matter. So, and it affects us more, the young people, the ones who have to rely on Facebook and the like to get by. So from us here at Broken Windows, I think that is it. That is a wrap.
So much. Please subscribe.
And also tell us about your idea of free speech.
Yes.
Your idea of free speech in this country.